We are diving through the 2023 draft running backs. Who is the biggest sleeper in the class? That and more superlatives tonight on the Football Guys College Football Show.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Football Guys College Football Show. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the 23 running back class like Jeff talked about. We're going to be going through maybe tiers, but we are done superlatives. You always got to put a word on there I cannot pronounce. We're going to be going through our biggest risers pre-draft, some guys that have fallen, our landing spot dependent guys, like who we're looking at, like, hey, you know, if that guy gets drafted by who, like we're a little worried, or where does this guy go? Sleepers, because everybody loves sleepers. We're just going to keep saying sleepers so it hits the algorithm, sleeper. Then social media's biggest post-draft crush. We're going to be talking about that. Most likely to succeed. I really feel like I'm reading a yearbook post right now, but let's get into Bijan Robinson. Jeff, why is Bijan Robinson a Greek god, and where is he going to go?
You know, he checks every single box for running backs, and we've talked about him before. We'll talk about him again, and you can't lead any show off without talking about Bijan Robinson. But now we have the athletic testing in, and we saw, you know, there's not a hidden late 4.5s number just waiting on the 40 to kind of hurt there. You know, he has that explosion that he shows on tape, and he tested through it. You know, he's an all-around package, and I think that everybody buys in, and there's a reason why he's the 101, even above quarterbacks. And you know, I did a mock this week on the website, so check that out. My mock 1.0. I did 3 rounds. I had Bijan Robinson going to the Falcons at the 8th overall pick, and you know, that might be early, and some people might think that that's aggressive, and it does kind of seem like people either have him as a top 10 player or outside of the top 20. But I do think that when it gets down to it, usually teams have about 18 first-round picks, and he's going to be one of those first-round picks. And the other thing, I've seen some arguments about the value of taking a running back in the first round, but people need to realize that if you take a running back in the first round, you get him for 5 years, you can tack on 2 franchise years on that. You're signing Bijan Robinson to a 7-year contract at below market value for you're going to have his entire career. So that's my pushback on the value of taking running backs in the first round, that if you evaluate him as a first-round pick, you're getting him for that, and you don't have to worry about contract negotiations, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Bijan is the total package. I'm working on a running back article for the site that is not yet done and not yet published. So look for that sometime, hopefully soon. But there are a ton of metrics that top 12 running backs have and have hit over the last, or on average, or over the last 3 years. Bijan hits almost every single one. And so wherever he goes, you know, this is a very landing spot independent player. Wherever he goes, he is going to be used. He is going to get touches. He is going to be fed the rock. And we've been talking about this for a long, long time. You know, we're doing our superlatives. I think it would be tough to, you know, bet on any of these other guys over Bijan. So most likely to succeed feels like that's his category. He won that before this show even started. But just you know, where is he gonna go? Day one, that's all that matters to me. And honestly, if he somehow fell to the second round, it doesn't matter. He's still a remarkable prospect that, you know, we've talked a lot about on this show.
We've talked a lot, and I think our comp to him for Edgerrin James, I think hit it on the head for what his ceiling can be. Like, he's a special guy. I think injury, you know, he's just, if he has an injury, yes, then we're talking about maybe him disappointing. But I can't see anything outside of that. I do want to ask Jeff real quick. I know he's going to yell at me for time, but if he goes to Dallas, he's still running back 1, Dynasty running back 1. You're not concerned with Tony Pollard?
No, he's not going to go to Dallas, and that's a fun narrative, but he's not going to Dallas. And you know, I've joked around about that, but I just don't see that happening. I think he's going to be off the board well before Dallas, and I don't think that they're going to move up to get him.
Okay, all right. Let's go. Let's jump over to Jamir Gibbs. What are we thinking about Gibbs here? So he's coming in. Many people have him as running back 2. I saw some stuff talking about him. Maybe he'd be running back 1 in any other class. Like, do you believe that? Like, do you think that's possibility? What are your landing spots out there for him, Christian? You know, where is he at?
So running back one discussion, I think, has to be a little nuanced because when we look at even last year's class with Breece Hall, I would not rank Jamir ahead of him. Now, I still think Jamir is a really good prospect. I just think you have to walk into his profile and understand what the limitations are. And I think that, Bijan, I just said he's landing spot independent. I think Jamir is very much so a landing spot dependent guy. I'm not going to, tag that most landing spot dependent superlative on him because I do think that there are other guys like that. But Gibbs, to me, he has to be used in the passing game and as a receiver to reach his full potential. And I don't know that every single team is going to want to use him in that way. Favorite landing spots, I would like to see him, kind of take over that Alvin Kamara role. I think makes sense at the back of the first round. I just don't know if that's exactly where he goes. The Bengals are a popular landing spot. I think that's one that's a lot of fun because of the Joe Mixon potentially getting cut situation, because he would walk right into a ton of targets at the running back position. So he's a really great player. There's a reason he's our number 2 running back, and he has remained that way. It's just he needs a team that's going to use him in the right way.
What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I saw the argument that he would be the number 1 running back in most classes, and I think that that's patently false. I don't even think last year he would have been over Breece Hall. He's just not that package of player that can accumulate those types of touches. When it comes to perfect landing spot, I mocked Kansas City Chiefs, and I absolutely love that. And I got a lot of blowback on, well, why would the Chiefs take a first-round running back after taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire? And it's, well, you watch football, and you can see why they would take Jamir Gibbs, given what Jerick McKinnon gave that offense last year, that big role, the way that I think how they want to structure that offense, they're attacking a lot less vertically. They used a lot more motions. They use a lot more getting guys in the flat with the ball and allowing them to create, kind of using Travis Kelce up the seam as that vertical threat, or Marquez Valdes-Scantling. With the departure of Juju Smith-Schuster, they haven't replaced that yet. Jerick McKinnon is still a free agent. You plug Jamir Gibbs into that role, and you're really just pouring rocket fuel into that, and that adding that into that offense, that just brings it up an entire level. And it's hard to find a better landing spot than that for him. It's just because there's not a better landing spot for that.
Yeah, I think Gibbs is pretty much. So you have Bijan in its own tier, and then Gibbs in like tier 2. Is that kind of how we all have it here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I think Gibbs will be fine. I think, he's going to get the draft capital. He is the best pass catching back. I absolutely think, like, when he has, just as a receiver, like, and that's where you get him at pass catching ability. He's second level vision, those things that we've talked about, we highlighted in the guide, but and his lateral agility is really good. And you watch him and you notice that, like, he does all the things that you'd like to see out there as a running back. And I don't like Christian talked about. Landing spot is kind of, to me, I think he's going to fit a lot of good places. Like, I don't necessarily hate any spot for him. What about the Cowboys? I'm kidding. We're not going to make this a Cowboy show. But that's, when you're looking at it, like, I agree. I think that's important there. And just to know about him, like, he's a solid running back too. And the running back one the stuff for like the last few classes, if you go through the last few classes, I don't think he's running back one in a lot. 5 of them, maybe, like the last 5. Like, I can't see him being there, but he's going to be a solid PPR back. And I think that's okay. All right, let's jump in, because after this, it gets okay. Who are these guys? Where are they at? We're going to start getting our superlatives in there and just kind of talk about it. Number 3, Zach Charbonnet, UCLA running back. What do we think about him? Some people thought he had a really, really good combine. Obviously, he got his weight down a little bit so he can run a little faster 40. Jeff, where are you at with Zach Charbonnet right now?
Yeah, I was the skeptic coming into the combine, and I was the fool that said maybe this is the Isaiah Spiller out there. But, I think I'm firmly in Zach Charbonnet as running back 3 in this class. I think when you look at the nuanced running systems that he ran in between Michigan and UCLA, he was asked to do different things there that really showed his ability and natural running ability. And I think that he has that above most any other running back in this class outside of Bijan Robinson. I feel most comfortable about him stepping into a full-time feature role. And it's just the immense upside and the big playability for Jamir Gibbs, and how big of an impact he can be in the passing game is the only reason why I have Gibbs above him. And it is kind of a little bit of that uncertainty. Where is he going to land? What is that draft capital going to look like? I think that maybe there are so many places that you can put him because there are a lot of backfields right now that are really lacking that hammer, and that's what he's going to bring. That's above all else. And I do question. We were talking offline pre-show early this morning. Christian and I were talking about how NFL teams are looking for that running back hammer, and that doesn't necessarily play that much into the passing game. And so while Zach Charbonnet has shown that ability to contribute to the passing game, ideally off swing passes, those types of things, I don't know that that's going to be a big element that he's going to bring to an offense. I think he's going to be that ground and pound inside guy. But again, landing spot, draft capital could play factors into that.
Yeah, so his pro day was slightly disappointing when we got the agility numbers in, because that was the thing, right? Does he have wiggle out in space? And it turns out that he kind of doesn't based on those agility numbers. But we kind of knew that going in. I think we initially comped him to AJ Dillon. I think that's what's in the rookie guide. I still see a lot of that. He's obviously a bit smaller. AJ Dillon's about 20 pounds heavier than him. But in terms of running style and what he's probably going to offer in offense, I think AJ Dillon is a nice like role specific fit. That said, I do think he does eat up a lot of carries. I think this is a guy that teams are going to be willing to turn and give the ball to and say, okay, go get us 4 or 5 yards, because he does fight for extra yards. And I think that that's one of his biggest traits, is that he's going to run in a physical manner. And we saw a little bit more of that, open field agility and ability to impact the game through the air. It's just that's not his specialty. And in the NFL right now, we've got a lot of specialty players out there, and Charbonnet doesn't really fit that bill. But there's also the chance that he does go to a team that wants to use him as a workhorse, and then I think we feel a little bit differently about his outlook moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue his specialty is going to be that red zone just bruiser, and he's going to be that guy you can plug and play, and you're okay with where he's at. I think it just depends on where you're getting him and your rookie drafts. Like I think Superflex probably going 109-ish, 108, depending on kind of where that's at, and like that might be his ceiling. Like when you're looking at him as a prospect moving forward, like Dylan was going what? When we come to Dylan was going second round in rookie drafts.
He was a rookie.
Yeah. So like Charbonnet is kind of like you're looking at him, you're hoping that he can kind of produce those 2 years where you're at that 109. But because that running back 3 is a question mark right now, if you have Charbonnet there, I get it. I get drafting there because it's a clear tier break, I think, in my opinion. Like when you're looking at the tiers here, just from a fantasy production for perspective, like when you're looking at it from a fantasy guys. So that's kind of where I would look at it there. All right. Hey, if you're watching, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment right now. I see you guys all in the comments. We appreciate you. If you're listening to this on the pod, and after this, you can come hop in with us, and we'll definitely answer your questions, all things, Dynasty and these questions here. And make sure you listen to us there. And hey, don't forget, download the rookie guide. We had 2.0 come out. So as long as you're in there, it is free as well. So we made that free for you guys. And the big 3.0 is coming out. So it's going to be coming out after the draft. So be ready for that. So just go get in there now. Go have some fun and kind of go over this with you after this show. Kind of get into that guide. So let's go to 4. This is my biggest riser pre-draft. So you just put him in there. I don't know if you guys can put him in there. Tajae Spears, Tulane running back. Definitely, Spears is kind of taken off. He's looked good at the combine. When you're thinking of what he did he went to Senior Bowl, 5'10", 201. He really kind of elevated himself in terms of like what he's been able to do. He's kind of had that. He's really looked good. And so when you're looking at him here, I think, burst, long speed, receiving ability. Spears is one of those guys that's kind of shot up boards. And I've seen him as high as running back 2 of people, some running back 3, 4, all in there from a guy that was probably outside the top 10 going into it. Jeff, where are you at on Spears? Because I don't think I've heard a Spears take from you yet.
Well, I think that we have found my most landing spot dependent player, to be honest with you, because I think that I want to see Tajae Spears in a role that I feel like he's going to comfortably profile into a passing down role. And I think he can do a lot of other things, but our comp was James Cook, and we saw James Cook landed in Buffalo. And I think that in some extent, you were excited about the draft capital he got. You're excited about his placement in an explosive offense. But he doesn't get that passing role that you really want. And we saw production last year. And now yesterday they brought in Damian Harris. So cloud that backfield a little bit more. They do have Nyheim Hines, and it'll be remain to be seen if he gets any sort of role. You're not going to get even that passing back role because that's just not a focal point of the Bills offense. And the way that Josh Allen plays, they just haven't traditionally used that. Maybe that gets added in as Ken Dorsey gets a little bit more comfortable, as James Cook gets a little bit more up to speed, but we didn't see that as an element last year. And so that is the one thing that, I see these guys, I see Jamir Gibbs to the Eagles, and I see maybe Tajae Spears. And while you're thinking upside within an offensive scheme, sure, that's great. You're just not getting passing involvement if you get hitched to one of these quarterbacks. And like maybe Chicago's another landing spot that maybe they could look at adding a quicker back to complement what they have already. But again, how much passing work are you going to get with Justin Fields? Because it's just not elements within these NFL offenses. And so that's where I want to see Spears really catch that passing role, because I think that that's a key that he brings, and it's going to be key to really delivering that value, especially if you're evaluating him as a top 4 running back in this class.
Yeah. So I'm struggling with Tajae now. And I don't know why it's now. Like, I should have probably factored this in before, but it's really tough to wrap my head around a 200-pound running back with his running style being super fantasy relevant. I think Jeff's right. We need the passing involvement for him to be a high value fantasy performer. I do think that he's more involved, but if he gets hitched to one of those teams, I think that Jeff makes some very valid points. I fully understand that. On the other side of things, I think he is a more physical runner than his weight suggests. I think that he could be one of those guys that is an outlier as we look at, maybe he's not a top 6 or 7 fantasy running back ever in his career, but maybe he provides, RB 14 to 16 consistently for the next few years. And that's kind of what I'm looking at with Spears. And that's why I still think of him highly. It's just, there is a little bit of caution now that I do think he's getting day 2 capital. I think that's going to help. But like you said, Jeff, the comp is very much so James Cook, and we kind of see what that looks like 2 years removed now, or a year removed. So I still love Tajae. I still don't think he's the most landing spot dependent, but I fully understand it.
Yeah. Spears has been one of those guys that I've kind of been like, about. Like, I've been a little bit worried, like you mentioned, Christian, there. The landing spot matters, and that's really what you need to come out of this show. Like, I think Spears is one of those guys, like Jeff hit on a big point. Where are these guys going to go and get the pass catching? Because now Cook is, James Cook is he's a football player, right? But fantasy wise, like he really took a hit. So if Spears can find that role, then that would be good. But again, that's a tough one. Like, yeah, and anytime anytime someone gets mocked to the Eagles, I cringe a little bit, because I'm like, no, like, because we've kind of seen what that is, and we want a ceiling plays, we want that upside, and that's not going to really give these guys upside, especially with top 10 running back Rashad Penny there now. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's go to Tank Bixby. I know I just had to I have to throw a bone to Christian every once in a while on the show. So we got Tank Bixby coming in, Auburn, and he's my sleeper. I like Tank. I think Tank is one of those guys that he's a sleeping just based on his value right now. He's going to like early second, sometimes mid-second and rookie drafts value. Like we comped him to Josh Jacobs, which I think is a fair comp for his ceiling with what he can do. He's not going to wow you at everything, but he'll be I think he's going to be a solid producer. So if you're looking for a running back in that second round, and I always look for running backs in that range where they can be second or third on that depth chart, and hey, they have a shot. And then you get into that value play. So that's where I'm at with Tank. I think he's my sleeper in terms of where he's getting value now. Where are you at, Jeff?
So I mocked him to Dallas, and I really like that landing spot for him, kind of taking that Ezekiel Elliott role and being that 1-2 punch with Tony Pollard. It's crazy that the valuations that I'm seeing on him a lot of places. I got him in the 212 in an analyst league a couple weeks ago, and people are just so off on him, and we didn't expect him to test good. And so it's one of these that as much as it drives me absolutely insane when people are talking about double count, everybody's double counting Tank Bixby's athleticism and knocking that back. And he's exactly the player that we thought he would be. And those natural skills when it comes to running the football, he's got those he's a natural instincts, power, that he can be that power complement. He's just a smooth runner. He's a technician. And I think that not a lot of these guys in this class fall into that role, and there are a lot more, as you're sorting through buckets on who can fall into what roles. I think he's an early down guy that can be a goal line back that can help a little bit in the passing game, and that's really what you want to see, especially if you're getting a guy in the mid to late second round.
Yep, I think a lot of people also are kind of just wrong in his testing. He came out with an 8.27 relative athletic score, and a lot of that is stemming from his 10-yard and 20-yard split, which comes out on his film. That's that burst, that's explosiveness, and that's exactly what Tank offers. I was going to put him in my biggest riser pre-draft until Jeff just told me where he's getting him, because I have seen a lot of love for him on social media in terms of, oh, I'm revisiting Tank's film finally, and now I see what people are saying. Also, this guy that we're about to talk about has kind of fallen off the grid, so now Tank is back in that tier. But I have other sleepers, so I'm not going to put him there either. So Tank doesn't get a superlative for me, but still one of my favorites. I think he's my RB3 right now. I still feel very confident that he has a profile that the NFL likes, and so I think we see him drafted maybe even higher than most project.
Yeah, and I need to stop and I need to give Christian a shout out. People need to understand Christian's value and why we love working with him so much. Christian is deeply involved in the draft side of things. So when Christian's bringing you information, Christian's bringing the information from where he's hearing from scouts and from where guys are expected to be picked. And I think that I certainly come from more of the fantasy side, and I like to spread that world a little bit, but that is one thing that when you hear Christian talk about where a guy's going versus where I talk about where a guy's going, I'm usually talking about in a fantasy draft where a guy is going, and Christian's talking about that capital. So I think that that's an important thing to lay out.
And I create a balance by just talking about nonsense. Like that's what I do. So like that's where I'm at, and I'm in the middle of just nothing. So no, but I think I feel like Tank's the guy we're gonna be watching our rosters for like the next 4 or 5 years. We're like, oh, okay, like hey, there he goes. And I think that's where you fit in this chunk of tier players. Like he fits that profile. So I really do. I do think it's there. All right, let's talk about the much maligned guy, running back Zach Evans, Ole Miss. Like he's. To me, I'm going to actually put him as my biggest, fall pre-draft as well. So I think like a lot of people start him as running back 3 of the class. They're really high on him. According to even us, like we talked about him. I still think he's a hell of a runner. I think he's an elite athlete, even though he didn't test very well. Well, actually, he hasn't ran yet. He didn't go test the combine. But I still think he could. So we can still see him jump up there. But there's some red flags with Zach Evans' profile. I think as just off the field stuff and other stuff that's gone on. So we've seen him dip a little bit, but I'm still in at the value. So like there's a weird like where I'm like, if he finds himself in there, those areas, I think maybe you're in on him. What are we doing with Zach, Jeff?
Praying that he is going to be
day 2 capital. That's
day 2 capital, or maybe even, I don't know. That this is a guy that he weighed in at 202, and that was kind of a hit. It's just been one thing after another. He's the Kayshon Boutte of running backs right now. It just feels like where we had him a year ago, where he came into this class as the number 2 running back and as a freshman, right behind Bijan Robinson in that class. He certainly didn't waste any time in college to head on out, but again, it's just been, last year was disappointing with the injury, with Quinshon Judkins taking over a primary role with Ole Miss. This year not being able to test yet is disappointing. That weight coming in is disappointing. It's just one of these things that you're going to be continually disappointed. And at some point, you just got to grit your teeth and hope that somebody buys in still at the NFL level, because this might be a slide that, we're still might even be high on him.
Yep. All of that. But also he's the guy that I'm watching that if he does slide in the NFL draft, and then we're hearing camp reports in 4 months, 5 months, I don't know how long, it's a while before training camp, but you get the gist that Zach Evans is, taking over a backfield. I'm not going to be shocked. And so I think a fall is actually going to help on the fantasy side of things, because I think it's going to push his value to kind of insulate the risk, and really, if he ends up in the back of round 2, I'd rather take that shot than some of those guys going there right now. If he ends up in round 3, easiest pick of my life, Zach Evans, because I still want to bet on the talent, and I want all of the off-field stuff and all of the, workload stuff. I want that to flesh out, because at the NFL level, they won't hesitate to give him a high workload, run him into the dirt for 4 years, and then cut ties with him, because that's what the NFL likes to do. So I'm kind of hoping that he goes to a team where there is opportunity. A team like the Bears is still my favorite. I still really want to see him there. I know they signed Deontay Foreman and they have Khalil Herbert, but that running, that offense with Justin Fields in the backfield, that's one where I'm absolutely making that bet.
Yeah, to me, and I'm gonna go to Jeff and let him think about it, like what team he likes to fit. But I think with Zach, I'm just in on him. Like, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like, I feel like in the late value that you can get him at now, like I'll bet on the talent. And I get if the draft capital is not there, then you have to take a look. But in the third round, I'm still going to smash that, because like in the third round, you're looking at guys who can maybe go up that depth chart and look for it. I think Evans could compete that way. Where do you want him to go, Jeff?
A team that has a history with troubled running backs that I think would be a fun landing spot for him would be the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I like that. If they cut Mixon, I mean, that's...
Well, you give Mixon a year even and let Zach take over too.
Based on some of my dynasty rosters, I hope no one gets Mixon, does not get cut. All right, let's go to numbers. Next guy, Devon Achane. What do we think of Devon? Texas A&M running back. He kind of came up 5'9", 188. He hit that 188, and people were excited about that. 40-yard dash, 4.32. We knew that. He is speed. He's fast. He's going to get an open field. He's going to do that. People are buying in again, and they're saying, hey, yes, the size is a concern, but he's going to be my outlier. Is he your outlier, Jeff?
Yeah, I think that he has to be. I don't know. He didn't have a big passing down role in college. And I think that that's one thing that people look at the profile and look at the type of player that he is and assume that he's going to be this quick scat back, but he was a lot more physical in college. And so Christian talked about with Tajae Spears, the concern about him holding up. I do have that a little bit with Achane, where I don't know, because he ran between the tackles at Texas A&M, and he was a primary ball carrier there. And I think that he's going to add that explosive big play element to a rushing game, and I like him because of that ability, that you be that guy that break off 13 points in just one play. But again, I don't know that I profile him as that big PPR monster, as being like that next Austin Eckler or that type of player that catches 95 balls in the season. I just don't know that we've seen a lot of that skill yet.
Yeah. Man, he's 14 pounds lighter than Tajae Spears. Like, I struggle so much with guys like this, because he is a speed outlier, and teams love speed, and teams want to get that speed on the field. But when he's on the field, what does that mean? Does that translate to fantasy points? Is he going to be used on pop passes and in the sweep game and things like that? Maybe, probably a smart offensive coordinator would, but there's a reason. So he's my most landing spot dependent player. I think if he goes to a team that traditionally runs, gap scheme in between the tackles and says, Devin, we want you to do this, I don't think that we're going to be happy with what his output is, at least, until he finds himself on a different team. Because at 188 pounds, you're not running between the tackles and taking enough carries to be fantasy relevant. So I don't know. I've been in this I don't know what to do with him phase since I started this draft cycle, which last fall, and I still don't know what to do with him. And so I'll just remove myself from this conversation now. Kevin, what do you think?
That's not how this works. Wait, we are 100% hot takes, so they could get clipped and shared in group chats. No, I think with Devin, it's weird. I'm coming around on Devin, damn it. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's guys like, we have guys that we talk to all the time and they do it. I think that when you're looking at it from a PPR standpoint, I don't know if you can rely on him every game. Like where you put him on your lineup and roster and you're like, oh, okay, here's this guy who's going to give me 10 to 12 points. I do think there's enough boom games though that could win you some game and some fantasy matchups. And I think that's where you lean. And with the value where he's going, so all the drafts I do a bunch of Football Guys mock drafts every night, or I try to every night just to try to see where the value's at. He's mid-second is okay. I feel like it's not like a big risk, right? Like I don't necessarily like hate it. I would love late second. Like if you can get him at that late second spot, like I would love that. But again, like you might want to take the shot there. I still think I'd take, I guess, Bixby over him just because the profile and the size, right? But like I think from a PPR standpoint, and I think there's some booming up in there that I think he's not. He's a better prospect than Gainwell was, right?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Kind of. Gainwell was a pretty damn good college prospect, though. That's it. But I guess,
I really liked Gainwell.
But Devon in the SEC, right? So when you're looking at that, and he played in Game 1, played in Memphis, didn't play his last year. So like I get it, and then Devon's. I know the analytical guys aren't gonna like this, but like in my model, there's like this like just dog model, right? Like Devon's got it. Like Devon, he goes and plays. He plays bigger than he is. Like and he's got that it factor about him. And I think there's just something about him. I think that's why people are gonna get into him. And again, it's price dependent. Like I'm not gonna sit here and just say draft him with a first round pick. Like I've seen him go at the 112, and I think that's a little too high for me personally. But middle of second, if you're not risk averse and you feel now, here's the other thing, and maybe I'm stupid here. You take him in the mid second, you could still get like a running back in the third, maybe that like Eric Gray or some of these other guys we're going to talk about here later, where it's like, okay, I'll take the risk on Devon. If he hits, great. But then I'm going to take a guy in the third. Maybe you can get Zach Evans in the third. And you kind of have that risk adverse, like, oh, okay, I feel comfortable with this profile in the third where maybe he can give me some points, but I'll take the swing on Devon. And I think that may be the way you look at your drafts.
Put him in Miami. That's as much as I would hate it as a Bills fan, insert him into that speed, into that high octane offense, and I just would love that fit.
You just did what every analyst does. Go to Miami.
That's a
Jeff. Did you guys see the women's college basketball player that said "have fun in Miami" when she was talking trash? We should say that to Devon Achane. What I wanted to ask, though, I know we don't have time to ask this question, but we're talking about carving out a role. I see that in the comments. He'll carve out a role. Is it worth it to take a swing on a guy that has to carve out a role over a guy that you think could potentially get a massive role from the jump? Like, I guess, so say Zach Evans does go to the Bengals and they cut Joe Mixon. And then Devon Achane goes to, I don't know, the Patriots. Just Devon Achane would very clearly get a role in that situation. Zach Evans could potentially take a whole backfield. Which guy would you want?
Whoever
Zach
gets
Evans
drafted first.
Of course, but
yeah,
no, it's but I think it's important to note that as you're going through, this is all landing spot's going to shake all of this up, and it should, and that's okay to do it that way. Is so many people are out there. Well, you've got to be firm on your rankings, and you cannot allow this running backs. It's all opportunity. Put a guy in the game that's going to get you fantasy points, and put him in a good offense, and like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Ask guys how they're feeling right now when they left David Bell at wide receiver 2, like they did, going into the last offseason, and they were drafting him as such. So, Bell truthers aren't feeling very good today. So like, yeah, I think there is a mix there. I'm trying to think, I guess we'd probably put him in that most landing spot dependent. You did already. All right, let's go to Kendra Miller. Kendra Miller's a guy it's so funny. I see people like, I feel like people get bored on social media sometimes and they'll just say Kendra Miller, really good. And like they have a highlight. I've been seeing that lately with him. And he is, when you're looking at what he was able to do at TCU, 1,300 yards, almost 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns there. Really good. I think he's very scheme versatile in terms of where he can land. I think he has really good footwork. I think always highlights with me with Miller is his footwork, especially at the line of scrimmage, like ability to kind of make guys miss. He's like Tank a lot. Like there's a lot of Tank in Kendra's game, like in terms of like what he is. I know Kendra's probably a little bit bigger, but just has that. I think long speed is the one that is can he get it consistently? I think that's the big one here. So what are we doing to Kendra, Jeff?
Well, he hasn't tested yet. I haven't seen any numbers on his testing. Has any of those come out? No, because he didn't test at the combine.
He didn't test the combine. He's still nursing that thing. I think the pro day is coming up. I don't know exactly what. I'll look at it real quick, but when the pro day is. But yeah, he hasn't tested yet.
Yeah, and he's a guy that pre-draft he was listed by TCU as like that 225 guy, and he came in more of the 215 guy. So
Yeah.
I think he needs to test and show that explosion. I do have him down as I can see that the everything bubbling around him as social media's biggest post-draft crush, because it feels like we're already in that direction already. So if he gets any sort of capital and is close to any sort of landing spot, he's going to be every analyst's favorite sleeper, even though he's probably going to get valued as a top 5 asset. So I've got him down there. I think that you touched on the important things about his game. Potentially that long speed. That's what he showed a lot at TCU. But again, we haven't seen any testing to confirm that.
8 days, March 30th. So if you're listening to this on the day we go, it's March 30th.
Still being tax season.
I want him to go to the Bengals. That's where I want him to go.
We have to. There's more than 3 teams. I did this too. But no, I want him to go to the Bears. No, I'm just kidding. Kendra Miller to me is a guy that everyone's kind of hyping up right now. And I am not positive that he's going to get day 2 capital. I think that when you watch his film, I think you can justify it. I think that he's got starter at the NFL level capability. I think he is a versatile running back that does have a little more wiggle, that does have some burst, and he does have that speed on film. But I also think that he does nothing in a spectacular way. I think he does everything good and nothing particularly great. And that's sometimes what NFL teams want. I mean, Najee Harris got drafted in the first round. Najee Harris is the poster child for that profile of does everything pretty good, might not do anything great. So, I mean, maybe Kendra does get a little more draft capital than I'm projecting. In that case, yeah, I mean, I could see him being the biggest post-draft crush. So I'm going to tail Jeff here, and I'm also going to make him that. Because right now, I mean, he's the pre-draft crush too. I think that matters as well.
He's a little bit of both. I think because he didn't test yet. I think that's why we've seen it cool off a little bit. And so, yeah, I think he's fine. Like we were like me and Christian last year. We liked Kendra before the season started. Like we talked about that all the time. And like I like Kendra. I don't know. And I think there's something to be said. I think we got to start having a conversation at some point. Like, what is 4th round now? What are we doing? Because with the NFL and how they're valuing the running back position, like, will 4th round be day 2-ish, like in terms of fantasy? Like, where are these guys that get that 4th round in there? Because like there was some thing going around today about how, like, I think Tony Pollard he's getting paid $10 million this year, and that's more than like 10 or 15 teams are paying their entire running back room right now. I think when you're looking at how that position is getting valued, I don't know if we can instantly just say day 2 matters too much. Now, I mean, it does matter, but like, okay, 4th round, are we taking a shot on a guy like this? Like where he goes? Like, and I think that's something that we got to look at. We don't have the data yet. I don't know. I'm not a data guy, but I'm pretty sure we don't have all the data yet to collect that and see where these guys are going. But I think this is the class that's going to test that because there's so many guys.
Well, you know my thoughts on creating artificial boundaries based upon mythical round lines. I don't know. It's I think last year people faded Tyler Algier because he was a day 3 pick, but I think that coming out of it, you should have looked at it and seen, okay, there's nobody on this Falcons team outside of Cordero Patterson that's going to be a contributor in the run game. So this is a great landing spot for Tyler Algier, and I think that that's what we need to look at. You need to look at landing spot, not put an arbitrary round on something. And I understand that you're trying to group data into buckets, and that's a number that you can put into a spreadsheet, but you got to look at it a little bit with a closer eye than that.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, most people were fading Tyler Algier is because he was making like insured salesman miss and not necessarily top level talent. And I think but you're right too. Like you're definitely right on that. I love the arbitrary line though. Like we're in a mythical, you play too much Zelda, man. You're so old. All right, let's go to Eric Gray. Let's talk about Eric Gray and go over to this is my guy. I like him. I'm putting him as a sleeper because I don't care. Senior running back out of Oklahoma. 1,300 yards this last year, looked really good, and he had 33 receptions. I think people forget that. Like he's a very balanced guy. Like of these guys in this kind of group, Eric fits the 3-down back category really well. Like he checks that box, right? So, hey, if a guy can make an impact on both sides or into both those areas and both facets of that game from a fantasy perspective in late 2nd, early 3rd, mid 3rd round, like that's the box you want to check if you're Eric Gray with where he's at. So what do we think about this kid, Jeff?
Well, I think he's the dollar store Tajae Spears. It seems like and I've talked before about how he doesn't have the buzz because so many people in the Devy and the college football space were ready for him to take off going to Oklahoma. Yeah. He didn't do that, and I think that there's lingering buyer's remorse that's flowing through the community, and it just seems like nobody will buy into Eric Gray again. But he had a very good year last year, and he does bring a lot of the explosion, that pass catching ability that NFL teams crave. And I do think that I think he's going to be a day 2 pick.
Yeah, we just talked about the mythical lines, though. If he's a 4th round pick, I'm all in on Eric Gray.
Yeah.
I think 4th round is my like cutoff of guys I'm not out on because of the capital. 5th round, we're starting to get to the end of the draft where teams then are taking shots the same way we take shots in the 3rd and 4th round. Eric Gray, to me, though, just a remarkable film this year. I think a lot of people haven't caught up either because maybe they watched him before. And I do think that there is a shot for Eric Gray to carve out a nice role. He's one of those guys that, like, I do think he does some things special. I think he's got more burst than Kendra Miller. And so when we're watching the value of these two players, I don't really understand the discrepancy, and maybe the draft changes that. Eric Gray going to a team like the Eagles to kind of fulfill that, right now what they've got and kind of insurance for Rashad Penny would be a perfect scenario. So, I'm all in on Eric Gray. I don't know about any of I'm out on the superlatives. I don't even know how many I've listed off. Sorry.
The train is going off the rails as it always does at this point of the show.
Yeah.
I can't even say that word, so don't worry about it. All right, let's jump over to next guy, Sean Tucker. Okay, we need to have a serious conversation about Syracuse running back Sean Tucker. This kid did not run at his pro day, didn't run at the combine. He posted a video, which, hey, I'm all for it, on like some weird camera from 40 yards away. It was a little grainy. It was on a field somewhere. And he gave us his combine, his numbers. He gave us numbers that he said he could run. What was the 40 that he said he ran? Do you guys know off the top?
4.39. Well, he said the first one was 4.34, I think, but the second one was 4.39. So
okay. If Sean Tucker ran a 4.33, I would do the next show naked. Like that did not happen at all whatsoever. Like there is no way that happened. Like I don't, and I think I've seen some takes about Sean Tucker out there. I don't know how you can look at what he's done. He's kind of skipped some stuff where he needed to do the testing, and then he posted this video. How you can actually use that video as like evidence that Sean Tucker is okay. Like you're okay with putting him in where you have him in tiers. He was at running back 3 in some believable spots. Like that to me is a very suspect video. What do you think, Jeff?
I think he's a very productive running back for a team that really needed a productive running back in college. And I think that has been mythical tales told about his ability because of that situation. And that's kind of where some things are coming from right now. It's, I don't know. It's an interesting guy. Have your own combine there and do your own testing and whatnot. It's just, it's, Eric,
we can't use it seriously, right?
Yeah, Sean Tucker's not going to be on. He's not going to be on many of my teams. Actually, I think I did end up taking him in a startup that we're in right now. Just it kind of fell that way, but I don't know. It's good luck with him, and if you're out there and planting a flag, I wish you the best.
The other side of it, I'm like the most out on Sean Tucker, I think, of the three of us. But the other side of it is like the athleticism is sometimes there on tape. I think that, the burst and the long speed, but most of the time it was against really poor schools, really poor competition, the same way we knock other prospects for that. Syracuse did have some cakewalk games over the last couple of years. Yeah. But we know he's a good athlete. It's the other stuff, though. Like, also, he's not that good of an athlete. And if he doesn't have a relative athletic score, I am not counting those numbers. He doesn't currently have a relative athletic score, so do not count those numbers. If you go on Twitter, I think the video is still up there. It's a cool video, good for him. But I'm out on Sean Tucker at his price point. I've seen people put him at RB2 and RB3. I think the other side of things is he weighed in at 207 at the combine, which is not a good number for what we thought he might come in at. And that's, we knocked Zach Evans for it. And then Sean Tucker goes out and runs fast in a fake way, and no one's talking about his weight. So, yeah, I'm out.
Okay. All right. I can't keep talking about Sean. I will just say this, like with Sean, you said like people are like talking about him being an amazing athlete. He's okay. I wouldn't put him in the amazing category. Like, I don't think we've seen anything where he's amazing. So like, I don't know where that narrative comes from. Like I get it. He's a very productive back in college, but I don't see the amazing athlete narrative. All right, let's go over to Israel Abanikanda from Pittsburgh. Going into him, 5'11", 216. He still is not tested either. He's going to test at his pro day. So that's something to kind of keep a note when you get into it. Hey, we liked him here. We've talked about him, burst open space, good footwork, those type of things. Jeff, what do you think about Israel?
Good player. You guys were on him very early, and I think that we've seen he does have that explosive ability. He was very, very productive this past year, and I think that he lands in that. It's going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, I have a feeling, and I think he's going to be placed to be able to contribute very quickly. He's just a very, very productive back that does a lot of the things that you want to see out of an NFL running back.
He's got good burst. I'm kind of bummed. I've said this on the show before, but we were early on Abanikanda, and then I've kind of, turned my back on him because I think that while he was productive, I think that some of his film was inconsistent at best this last year. I think the vision was concerning, but the breakaway speed is there. And if you get him into an offense that he can take advantage of that, I think I'm interested. But I don't think he's a round 3 pick. I'm hoping for round 4 capital with him, but I could also see a world in which he falls to the 5th or 6th, and then I'm kind of out, especially with the hype surrounding him right now.
Yeah, his vision scares the hell out of me. You watch the tape, it's hit and miss. And he has big plays when he hits his vision, but it's so inconsistent. And I think that's the one thing that scares me when you watch it, because he can't do that in NFL. He'll get crushed. All right, next guy. And we're going to go through these last guys a little bit quicker, but we do want to get to most of them. Dwayne McBride, UAB kid, he came in smaller than we all thought. So I'm going to say that's one of my I don't even know if we're doing that still, but fallers in terms of like, where he's at. 209 pounds is not something I wanted to see there. Good contact balance and stuff, but at 209, I think that's concerning with his run style, right, Jeff?
Yeah, he doesn't run like that on tape. He runs like a 225-pound back guy, and that's what you're really hoping for there. And, he's had an injury. He's not been able to test, and it sounds like that injury is going to hold him out for even longer. So it's just starting to mount red flags on Dwayne McBride.
Yeah, and the film wasn't that good anyway. I think you were interested by the contact balance and the ability to handle carries, but I just don't see that as an outcome at this point.
Yep. Next guy, Kenny McIntosh from Georgia. Didn't have the greatest combine. It did okay, but it wasn't something that stood out to you in terms of like 4.6, 240. That concerns me, especially with where he's at. He's a good pass catcher, though. 43 catches, 505 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I think that's something like, hey, he could be a spot starter PPR if he finds himself on a good roll. But landing spot really dependent for this guy. Jeff?
Same. Yeah, he shows that pass catching ability, but again, testing wasn't there. And I think that his pedigree being out of Georgia, I think will attract NFL teams, what he was able to do in the college football playoff, other big games at certain points this season. But again, just not a guy that he didn't show the explosion in testing that he does on tape. And so you were a little bit discouraged there.
Yeah. On the other side of things, I think a lot of NFL teams will rely on that tape. And this is a guy that I do expect to come off the board before the 4th round ends. So I'm still slightly in on him, especially because right now you can get him really anywhere in drafts, which is intriguing to me.
You can. I mean, he's going in the 4th round of some drafts, so like he's definitely out there in terms of value. If you like him, like his pass catching. All right, Twitter darling Roshan Johnson from Texas. We've kind of mentioned him a few times. Like he's definitely out there in social media as being kind of the guy. 6', 219, everybody's favorite back, saying that if Bijan wasn't there, Roshan would be the guy, forgetting that the NIL existed. But when you're looking at it overall, what do you think of him, Jeff?
Yeah, if he would have started for, I see the conversation out there. He would have started for any other team in America if it wasn't behind Bijan Robinson. Well, if that's the case, he should have been your running back too. And if that's the case, a briefcase would have pulled up with some NIL money to pull him out of Texas. And so I think that there's reasons to be excited about him being a physical hammer as a guy that I think that there may be some similarities to Tyler Algier last year, where they play that type of role as a guy that can eat some carries. You want to see him get some goal line work. But I'm not all in on the express that this is just this magically guy that's hanging out there just because he was behind Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, if you want a guy that is consistently going to kick runs outside, even if he doesn't have to, Roshan's your guy. I think the film's inconsistent. I do like the athleticism, and I'm intrigued by the size profile, but I'm a film first guy, so still fairly out with all the hype.
All right, Kentucky running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. comes in 6'2", 217, a little bigger than what we thought in terms of like, hey, he looked there. I think he's good. Contact balance is where you're going to see it. So contact balance is key for him. Doesn't have the speed, not really good athlete. There's so many guys like this. What do we think, Jeff?
Your landing spot dependent. You want to see him get drafted. I think he's got the ability that he will get drafted, but again, another bruiser, another hammer that can play an early down role. And he does have the size as opposed to like a guy like Dwayne McBride. Rodriguez does have the size, and we've seen him be productive in the SEC. And I think that carries weight.
Yeah. He's more elusive than you'd guess as well when you toss on the film. So I'm intrigued by him, even if he's a 6th or 7th round pick.
And, Chase Brown, Illinois, I was out, and then he had the combine, and he looked okay. And, now you're looking at a kid that's 600 yards, 2022. He's an older prospect. So when we're thinking of him, hey, yeah, he played 5 years in college, so we've seen that. I'm actually kind of liking Chase Brown. I think, you have questions like where he's at. If he's day 3, obviously. I'm assuming he's going to go day 3. Lateral agility, everything in there. I think he's a very solid back. I think if he could find his role on these guys and kind of find his fit, I like that. I was thinking maybe Jacksonville, I think, was one of the areas that I highlighted for him, but I don't know. They made a move today to get Dearness Johnson, so I don't know if that's going to be the case. But what do you think, Jeff?
I think the testing, I think we kind of expected good testing. He was on Bruce Feldman's freak list before the season. We saw the production. You mentioned him being an older running back. I think he took advantage of a strong run heavy scheme at Illinois that was set up perfectly for him to do that. Again, older prospect, developed. He has the physicality. We didn't see a lot of usage in the passing game with Illinois, and I think that would be his role. Ultimately, I think he's going to have to play special teams and make the roster that way. I think we're about in that range now where guys have to play special teams, earn a role in that roster. And I don't know that you're going to get quick production out of him. And so he's probably going to be, we're kind of in stash him on the taxi squad range.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The relative athletic score and the testing stuff, I think that might push him up in NFL teams' minds. His brother also tested very well. I think they both get drafted probably early day 3. But yeah, this isn't a guy that I was impressed with the film. I think he's still kind of small, and I think he runs small. And I don't like small guys that run small.
Oh, okay. So you're a heightist or
yeah,
whatever that works.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry, Kevin.
Let me go. No one needed to know that. None of the viewers right now need to know that I'm short. They could know I'm 6'5". They don't know. They don't go to the expo. All right, let me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the rest of the guys, and I'm gonna have them talk about one guy that they want. So we have Travis Dye, USC, Keaton Mitchell, Muhammad Ibrahim, Deuce Vaughn, Evan Hull's getting some love right now. Tiyon Evans, Deneric Prince, Cameron Peoples, Lou Nichols, Tavion Thomas. Jeff, give me one guy. Talk about him. What do you got?
My favorite sleeper, Deneric Prince, and that's a guy that I think that if you're looking for the Isaiah Pacheco of this class, he's the Isaiah Pacheco of this class. He tested phenomenally, and he's off the radar. He's going to be a later round pick. You're hoping he lands somewhere, and so that's kind of where he landed on my radar, just out of the testing that came from the combine, and where you can get him, as because he's a complete afterthought everywhere.
Okay. Christian, anybody?
I'm gonna talk about 2 actually.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm breaking rules. Evan Hull is a guy I think we need to mention. He is getting a ton of love. He's being drafted in startups, and he's being drafted fairly highly in rookie drafts right now. The film just is, not my favorite, but this is a name that you should know if you're going into your rookie drafts. I I want to go back to his film and watch a little bit more because I'm not seeing what everyone else is seeing. So I'm out on him. But I want to talk about Aiden Bourget from Harvard. He had his pro day and he did like 35 bench press reps, and he got a profile from the Draft Network. And I think that there's a really good chance that this kid gets drafted. I'm more intrigued by him than some of those names on this list. And so good player. He's a little small too. And he wasn't the fastest, but explosive kid that I think could earn a role at the NFL level.
All right. And I'll give a shout out to our guy, Travis Dye from USC. I still think he's going to be someone I really like Travis Dye. I think he operates really well on the tackles, even though he's a smaller guy. I think he can score touchdowns at the NFL level. Good vision. I think pass catching. He had, the last 2 seasons, 67 catches. I thought he looked good there. So Travis Dye is someone got to kind of keep your eye on. He's going pretty much free in drafts. So he's one of those waiver wire pickups after the rookie draft. Go snag Travis Dye. I think Travis Dye is someone to keep your eye on out there. All right. Well, hey, boys, we went through the running backs. I hope you guys got enough running backs for you. There's so many in here. We could have talked about 40 running backs. I don't know how many is in our guide, but if you want more in depth, seriously, go get our guide. We did this entire guide with all these guys, landing spots, all of that. We're going to be adding to it. It's free. Go to Footballguys right now. Rookie guide. You'll see it on the main page. Click it. Put your email in. Completely free. Get it, go through it, and then you come yell at Jeff and Christian on Twitter. You see their ads. Don't yell at me. I'm too fragile for that kind of talk. But we're gonna jump into the games now. So we're gonna go. So hey, if you're watching this, I see you out there, all of you. Hit that like, and if you're not sub to the channel, sub to it now. There's so much good stuff on this channel that you can get weekly, and actually daily for all the stuff here. So make sure you do that. But at least like it for us, so our bosses know that you watch us, because we need that. We need that to show that we have value here. So let's go over to the Sportsbook rundown. We're going to pick some games. I went undefeated last week. That's right.
Yeah. See, I do it every time. I made one pick that was different from you. You went 4-0. Jeff went 1-3. I went 3-1. This week, we're actually picking the Sweet 16, all 8 games from the Sweet 16 of the NCAA men's tournament. And we are going to speed round it because we are going way over. So first game, Gonzaga versus UCLA. Kevin, who are you picking?
I'm going to go Gonzaga.
Jeff?
UCLA.
UCLA for me. Next one, Kansas State versus Michigan State. Jeff, you first?
Kansas State.
I'm going to go Michigan State. Kevin?
Give me a Michigan State.
Wow. Next one, FAU against Tennessee. I'm going first. Tennessee should win this game. Kevin?
Should be Duke, but I'm going to go Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Okay. Well, we just
Sorry, Joe.
It.
Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, we did it. Arkansas against UConn is the next one, Kevin.
We'll take UConn.
Jeff?
I need UConn to go to the Final Four for reasons. So
I think Arkansas is going to win this game. Maybe I don't think that, but I'm just going to pick it now because I already said it. Next one, Alabama against San Diego State. Jeff?
Alabama.
Kevin?
Alabama.
Yeah. Creighton versus Princeton. I'm up first. Creighton. I know Princeton's on a nice run, but they're done. Kevin?
I'm going to go Creighton. I was going to go Princeton, but I'm going to go
Princeton.
Princeton? Okay. Next one of the better games, Xavier versus Texas. Kevin?
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to go Texas here. Roddy Terry, shout out Fresno State, former Fresno State coach.
Xavier.
I'm going to go Texas as well. And then last game, Houston against Miami. Jeff?
Houston.
Houston for me as well. Kevin?
Houston.
All right. That'll do it for the Sportsbook rundown. The Kevin and Jeff game.
All right, let's jump over to prospect poker. So we're gonna be playing poker on the screen when ever Jeff figures that out, and then we're gonna be doing a little over unders. Hey, and we're doing a little over unders for college basketball. We are a college show, so we got to give a little love to the college basketball guys over there. So we're gonna give you guys some over unders here that you can bet. You can go out there and tail us. Definitely don't bet me because I haven't watched college basketball that much this year, but you can tail these other guys. So Christian, what is your over?
First, no, you can't. Don't bet these. Brandon Miller over 17.5 points. He's the Alabama's best player. I think he's going to put on a show here in the Sweet 16.
All right, so we've got an 8 of spades. We have a 5 of hearts. We have a 6 of clubs showing. Christian has a 9 of spades and 9 of diamonds, which is very fun for him. I'm going to go Drew Timme over 19.5 points. 35-year-old Drew Timme is leading the charge for Gonzaga, and I think that he's going to drop it on UCLA this weekend. And I got a king of clubs.
I'm going to go on Amari Bailey over 14.5 points. I have no analysis with that.
Yeah, that's cool. And, I'll stick with it for my under. Yeah, sorry. Amari Bailey under 4 rebounds. So he's going to score a lot, like Kevin said, but I don't think he's going to grab the boards this week.
4 of diamonds, which would have been fun, but it's not any fun. And then I'm going to go with Marcus Sasser under 17.5 points, just because. And I got a 2 of spades.
I'm going to go Tyson Walker under 27.5 fantasy points.
And Kevin wins the show.
You can tell you should not follow us for basketball analysis, but we got your college football analysis. We do better in the show there. All right, one last.
All right, the last game that we play is we play blackjack. The way we play blackjack is we ask a trivia question. When you hit, a good outcome gives you a good score, and a bad outcome hurts your score. So Christian has a 17, Kevin has a 12, and I have 11. So, okay. Anybody have a trivia question for me?
Yeah, I do. What is the name of Sabrina's cat in Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
Sabrina's cat and Sabrina the Teenage Witch is... Man, I don't know for sure. I know it's a wizard, but that was bad and turned into a cat, but I don't know the name.
It's Salem.
Salem, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. You almost got it. All right.
I watched that show. I'm old.
I watched it a little bit.
All right. I busted.
All right.
Oh, that would have been 21 too.
Yeah. It would have been 21. Okay, Kevin, who is leading the XFL in touchdown passes?
Who's leading the XFL in touchdown passes?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You definitely asked that last
McCarron?
week.
AJ McCarron.
Nice.
All right, good for you. So you got an 18, which means you need to hit again. Or Christian needs to hit.
I need to hit.
I got a question. What is the cat's name on Hocus Pocus?
Binks.
Oh, you got it. You bastard.
Thackeray Binks.
I
busted.
All right.
Dang it.
Kevin wins the show.
Yeah. So biggest thing for me right now is like when you're going through this is a weird stage of like rookie talk and everything there, looking at people, like looking at prospects and stuff. Just be careful, like who you follow. And that's why I feel like, when you're looking at rookie talk and making sure you follow people and sites like this to understand that there's nuances with all these guys, but also we're not going to get like overly like JSN, for example, today he ran his 40 and everybody's like, oh my gosh, he's ran under 4.6. We're all in. It's like, well, for us, he's been our wide receiver 1 for the majority of us. I know me and Jeff have been behind that a little bit more, being our wide receiver 1 for a while now. And it's like, well, he was my wide receiver 1 going into this. Like, and I think that's where you have to do, like, you can't shift your narrative so quickly. You look at little, like when we're watching these guys and prospects, especially us, our highlight, we've been watching these guys for a long time. And so we know their weaknesses and strengths. Like what he ran today wasn't a shock. And that's what I expected in the run for the last 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, a year. So like, I think it's very, be very careful with who you follow, but that's why you're here at Football Guys. You're watching it. We appreciate that. But also just know that like download our rookie guide and just know there's nuances to all these guys. But things like today, JSN's 40 time, or, oh my gosh, Sean Tucker, wait, he's not athletic. Why is he not running? Like we've known these things for a long time. And if you're just now getting to know that based on the people that you consume content from, shift to other ways and understand, like start asking questions like, why wouldn't you have known that beforehand? And just look for, other sources. And just be careful and that's the mistakes I made early on too. So it's not just, them, like I made those mistakes early on as an analyst. But that's why we're here trying to help you guys kind of give you the whole picture. So we appreciate you guys. We'll be back next week, March 29th. We're doing another deep dive. I don't know what position we deep dive. I'm assuming wide receivers, probably wide receivers.
Yes.
So.
Wide receivers next week.
Maybe. Right now it is. All right, wide receivers next week, 9 Eastern. Until then, I'm Kevin Coleman.
I'm Jeff Bell, and Kevin, your shelf looks nice.
Thank you.
I'm Christian Williams, and you just watched the Football Guys College Football Show.
That wasn't weird.